Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks. Today taking a look at a game I played pretty recently on a really fun map here. Totally didn't forget the name, I need to check it here. Red River Remake version 1.2. This is a super fun map. You can play this game north versus south or east versus west, and it's always a really interesting one. Some interesting creative designs came out here, but we'll wipe those off the map so we can take a proper look at it. So you can see there's, well, a prominent red river remade right in the middle of this map here. And as far as the way that this match was set up, the teams are divided east and west, which does mean that a lot of hovercraft come out here. We see a lot of Navy, we see a lot of airplay, but not so many bots or vehicles here. It's much more about anything they can cross the water, fly over the sky, or swim through the seas. But why don't we meet our team, shall we? Spawning on the western front for our red team. Red team leader, Dubhadara, or Duvdara. Somebody explained to me. I think it's a VH here, so it's pronounced Duvdara. Anyway, Duvdara going to be the red team leader here, and very popular player, very prominent player. I've seen them all around, all over the place. I believe they have a YouTube channel as well. Yeah, they are going to be in, well, there's not really a backline, so to speak, on this map here. It's sort of like Bismuth Valley in the sense that it's mostly all front lines, but they are going to be going for a bot lab here and getting a nice secure over their little sector of the map here. Spawning on the eastern side, the eastern side, I almost said the eastern tide. I guess that's almost correct. The eastern side here for the blue team. Blue team leader, we have Fiddler 112, or maybe 112, or maybe 11-2. Who could say, except Fiddler himself here, going to be representing the blue team with a little bot lab here for the Cortex faction. So we're going to be seeing a lot of these reclaim bots coming out, eating up a lot of these delicious rocks. You can see with that handy dandy reclaim widget here, we can see exactly how much metal there is tied up in all of the stones left around on the map. Very important to eat all those up, get a nice little economic bonus, boost production here. Here I am, my humble little green commander, my green units. I live in a house. No, I can't sing that song. I'll get a DMCA copyright or something. I don't know. Fortunate not to have been copyrighted already. I was worried that that commander video with the content included from the snippet included from The Quiet Place would be copyright infringed, but luckily haven't been served anything yet. We'll see in the future here. So far, a lot of the decisions that these players are going for is either bot lab or hovercraft. There's basically no point in going to a vehicle lab, although I guess you can go for a amphibious constructor and those amphibious tanks, but it does leave you a little bit out of the playing field here. So I think it's probably a good idea to go for an air lab, bot lab, or a hovercraft lab here. And indeed, that's what we're seeing across both teams. I'm going to speed this up a little bit because for the most part, basically this map is pretty slow, right? Because you can't really get any early game aggression out aside from early hovercraft. But you can't send ticks, you can't send light vehicles out. You basically have to send hovercraft. Now we do see a couple of these scout hovercraft here, the Cortex hovercraft. What are these called actually? The Goon. What a hilarious little unit. Square little hovercraft body here. Those inflatable tires. I guess it's just one big inflatable tire, isn't it? Anyway, the Goons are moving forward, and they are going to try and get a little bit of value out here. We'll slow this back down to see what damage these Goons can get in the back line. Just double checking to make sure there's no other aggression out on the map that we need to pay attention to, but it looks like we can focus in on the Goons pushing forward towards Duvdara's main base. I'll try to remember not to say Dubhadara, but it's what I've been going with for so long that now it's almost like ingrained in my memory. Duvdara going to be defending themselves here. We do have a blitz out on the field to chase back some of these, but a lot of economy damage has been done. Windmills going up in smoke. We do have a lot of these exploding. There we are. We're down to just 4 windmills. Light laser turret finally finishes up here. With that and the blitz combined, I think we are eventually going to mop up this aggression. Very nicely done here. It's sort of a race to get into the water first. Master Toby has actually done a interesting strategy here where we rushed out to this middle island and produced a hovercraft lab rather than produce a lab back here, so we'll have to see how that goes. I can't actually remember how this map go or how this match goes. It's been a while since I played this one. I know I did a terrible job at claiming all my metal spots here. I had a constructor that was in charge of doing that, but it kept getting distracted, and I was e-stalling. Yeah, I had a really rough game this time. Trying to send some early aggression across. I saw how successful these early harassments were being over here, shutting down economy. Wanted to try and contribute to that, whatever way I possibly could. Hovercraft for the red team, finally coming across down south here. North is pretty much all turtled up properly, but down south there's a few hovercraft that pick apart a constructor. They do find a coastal torpedo launcher as well and manage to burst that down pretty quickly. It's always very nice to see. Sophie stepping out into the water. She's making sure to claim these metal extractors. That's one important part about this map. Let me slow this down when we talk about this. So as you can see, as she's going for these metal extractors, these are all worth 3.2, the ones out in the water, so these are really important to get claimed. That's actually why I sent this constructor over here. I changed it up and sent it to go build these metal extractors, because they're worth quite a bit more than these ones on land. You can see these are 2.3, these are 3.2, so every one of these you can claim is going to give you a nice little economic boost. That's going to help you out quite a bit. So really, really nice. I love to see Sophie moving forward and grabbing all of these. And then, of course, using the hovercraft to continue expanding the base production as well. Very, very nicely done. We do see the halberds coming out, these heavy assault tanks. The assault hover tanks, technical title. These are really cool. There's no Armada equivalent. I can actually show you that really quickly. Armada does not have an assault hover tank. There's just the Crocodile, which is just the regular hover tank. And then the Seeker, which is like the harassment unit. But yeah, no assault hover tank for Armada, so I do like to see that sort of advantage, I guess you could call it, or just that asymmetry brought out and used in whatever context we can. Error 429 says it's GG. Yeah, getting harassed absolutely atrociously here by a bunch of these little units pushing through. That does tend to hurt quite a bit. Sometimes it hurts the morale more than it actually hurts the economy, but that can be just as effective. Bunch of these crossbow here, moving around, trying to position themselves and be a effective anti-air force. Unfortunately, they're not an anti-tank force, so they're taking a lot of damage here. The hero pawn out to shut all this down. Eventually, these hover tanks will be eradicated, and fortunately here for the Seafoam player, the aggression will be halted. I forget why, but I had patrolled a sweeper, the anti-air hovercraft, back and forth over here. I can't remember what was going on. There must have been a scout or something that I was worried I was going to find over here. Yeah, there are some scout planes. I wonder if it'll shoot at them. I guess not. Probably didn't have vision. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I don't have many builds where I work on a hovercraft lab, so it's difficult to say what's the right move to go for there. Definitely these metal extractors were super important, though. I think if you're gonna go Navy, the best place to do it is within these little crevices over here. So there's one here, there's one up north here, and then there's likewise one down here, and then you kind of have the advantage on the Navy down here as well. Not so much this southern spot, but definitely up north here. You can probably fit 2 players in here even, and that allows you to have a little bit of land-based protection for your shipyards where you want to pump those units out, and that can be a really, really nice advantage. At this point, trying to get an actual Navy up. That's what I was thinking anyway. Devdara already up to T2, so that is really, really impactful. Hopefully we see these handed out to the teammates. That'd be really nice to get that taken care of so that everyone's economy starts to boom. With this many metal extractors out on the map, upgrading to T2 is super, super important. Battle of the light hover tanks here, light hovercraft. You can see these things, they kind of suck at shooting each other. Yeah, for whatever reason, they just like cannot hit each other, which is really odd. It's quite a problem. These are headed right into my base, and this is quite a lot of these little seekers doing an excellent job of finding a weak point here and exploiting it as well as they can. Light laser turret comes up and it barely does anything before it gets completely shut down here. And these hover tanks do a tremendous amount of damage. Thinking about blowing up this energy converter and then thinking better of it. So I realize, wait a minute, that could be quite disastrous here. And these hover tanks are being a right and proper pain in my ass. I think if I remember correctly, what was happening in my mind was I was like, well, the land base is lost. Time to get into Navy. And so I just started focusing entirely on Navy. Destroyer out here doing a ton of damage, actually getting some really nice hits against these hovercraft, softening up the next wave that is supposed to be attacking here. So that is really quite nice. It's doing sort of a poor job at the moment, but doing its best, I suppose. Vision is finally restored over here, and so we can actually see what we're shooting at, making this a whole lot less, whole lot less damning than it once was. Suddenly, I realized that those pink hovercraft are actually coming out of this facility, and it was comforting to know that this production facility was actually under siege here, and things were not looking good for this player anymore. Made me more comfortable with losing my entire production facility in the backline, because at the very least I still had units up north. Now this was really scary. This was kind of the first indicator that I had that Orange was actually producing a lot of units up there. I had seen their radar signature, but I hadn't seen any units, so I was a little bit worried that there was going to be tons and tons of Dolphins headed down my way. Very scary indeed. Salmon player doing a good job of fortifying up this area. Got a heavy laser turret out here, the Coral, the floating heavy laser turret, as well as some of these torpedo launchers, which is really nice. These Seekers have not been dealt with here, continuing to ravage the backline. There's just so few units that can actually keep up with them. You're basically limited to like a tick or a sprinter or anything like that. Yeah, there's hardly anything that can keep up with these Seekers, and so they are getting tremendous value in this backline. Really, really nicely done. I mean, you can see the absolute rampage they went on. Went up north here, and then they've come all the way down south, torn up all of this stuff, blew up this base here for Requare, and are now finally being dealt with by a bunch of hover tanks of their same weight class. But yeah, really efficient there. Very, very nicely done by Master Toby. Unfortunately, they paid for it with their lab here. So yeah, unfortunately, that's going to be a lofty sacrifice. Master Toby forced to retreat here and going to be going into airplay very shortly. Up north. Greater Good. Okay, I see how to say your name. Greater Good. Tons of advanced solar panels. Very nice to see. We're up to 1,000 energy production. We're definitely looking to tech up here. Yep, we've already got it queued, and that is phenomenal. Yeah, we're making all the right moves here to get a nice little technological lead. And for what it's worth, I think it's absolutely the right move. We've got a fairly secure navy here. No naval contest from the blue player on this side. Just going to be fortifying this coastline. So we might as well just casually produce units here, and whenever we're not producing anything, or with the metal that we're not using to produce anything, I should say, yeah, we're just going to tech up. So it's very, very nicely done. Love to see that. Down south, we have the wreckage of a push long past. Looks like some salmon units here coming out of the salmon hover tank. The salmon player making hover tanks and stuff. I don't know. There's something poetic about that. You'll have to let me know down below how you feel about salmon making hovercraft, hover salmon, if you will. Shurikens, the bane of my existence. I always forget anti-air, especially in my navies. I just never think about it. It's because the anti-air, the T1 anti-air is so pitiful. It's really, really bad. It's basically only good against shurikens, and so it was really convenient that was the only thing I had to deal with here. If this was gunships or something like that, this would have been a whole other mess. Luckily, the T1 anti-air does come out eventually, and I'm able to shut most of this down. Trying to paralyze my anti-air, but luckily it's the last thing that they start shooting at, so I managed to free up my ships in time to deal with this dolphin attack. These dolphins are ferocious, but they definitely don't stand up against battleships, destroyers, I mean, rather. This is really dangerous, though. We do have the dolphins, or not the dolphins, the ducks moving forward here. Coming out from the light tan player here. Jeff Bates Shoes. Bringing out a bunch of these ducks, rather. Luckily, I have the destroyer here in order to actually deal a little bit of damage to them, but you can see just how ridiculously low the damage is. It's about 10% per shot, maybe a little more, a little less. But yeah, not very much at all, and I only have a single destroyer in this army, so this is looking really, really bad. I'm absolutely stalling. I'm trying to make sure that the ducks don't push forward into my base. I want to keep them as distracted as possible with this army composition, and so I'm just letting them have it with this destroyer and his depth charges. Luckily, most of their torpedoes miss if you kite properly, and they don't fire very often. So the destroyer can definitely do quite a bit of damage here. But yeah, I was absolutely terrified. These were just going to walk into my base. I'm really excited when I get to cast these games, because of course when I'm playing, I'm super hyper-focused on my lane, and I can't really see what's going on. Sophie getting herself stuck in a proper engagement here. We've got a bunch of hover tanks up against a bunch of assault hover tanks, and I think I have to give it to the laser tanks here. They're going to be much more powerful, although they don't have the range. That is quite unfortunate. Yeah, the hover tanks can lob their shots quite a bit further. Well, not quite a bit further, but a little bit further. It's gonna let them have the range advantage here. Wow, that was a brave Riptide pushing forward here, trying to do its best, but yeah, its best was not enough. Hover tanks thinking about pushing in again, but now the blue navy has arrived. We have destroyers, we have assault frigates, we have everything we need to push back a couple of hover tanks. A couple of rapscallion hover tanks over here. That's really nicely done. Floating coral heavy laser tower is out, and that's those are pretty damaging to those ships. Certainly that's a good idea for if you need a way to siege these. Submarine has been brought out, and that's actually quite nice. There are destroyers to slowly shoot this thing down with depth charges, so eventually, yeah, we're going to see it melted down. Really, really nice. Very well done as far as Fiddler's Navy is concerned. Sophie moving these hover tanks up onto land here, and we're actually going to start pushing in with them. This is a really huge play. If these can get some work done, they're going up against Dovdara, and if Dovdara is taken out of the game, you're in a good spot here, because that's definitely one of the better players. You can see they don't actually have much production up right now. There's a seaplane platform making gunships, but as far as any sort of navy goes, there's not much out. Now, there's a ton of gunships moving across, 9 gunships to be total, or 9 gunships in total, rather. Oh, they're taking some big hits from these anti-air turrets over here, though. Oh, that really hurts to see. Yep. A lot of these get absolutely melted by those anti-air turrets, and at the end of the day, only 3 gunships remain. They decide to retreat, but oh no, they retreat right back into those anti-air turrets. Oh, that's so unfortunate. If I had been attacked with those, I would have lost. If anybody else would have been attacked by, well, wow, definitely not here. Fiddler with SAM turrets even instead of the light anti-air, but yeah, certainly they just unfortunately happened to walk right over the anti-air turrets, meaning that those gunships were shot down. Huge loss of metal there. One of them is left behind for base defense. These hover tanks can actually shoot at it. Oh no, Sophie is stalling on energy. Wow, she has tons of energy production though, so yeah, that's loads of advanced advanced solar collectors here. I'd love to see a fusion reactor put down. I think that's probably the next step here. A fusion reactor, and also upgrading all of our metal extractors. We do have a T2 bot walking around upgrading them. Very nice, very good to see. Battleships here, destroyers, I mean, I always get those two confused. Destroyers here to tear down a lot of these defenses, also deal with some of these submarines, try and do their best to clear out the salmon player from down south. Meanwhile, the ducks are on the march. Yeah, this was pretty disheartening to see. These ducks are really annoying. I tried to make submarines to counter them. I don't think that's the right move either. I think, honestly, the best move is just a lot of these torpedo launchers like this. Just make a whole ton of these offshore torpedo launchers, and I think you're going to be in a whole lot better of a situation here. This coastal torpedo launcher, however, this was a phenomenal move. This actually worked out really nicely. I'm not sure what my plan was, what I was thinking. I had a T2 Air Lab out in the back line here. Tons of wasted build power over here. Yeah, my build was definitely quite sloppy. This is not one to practice. Definitely not my tutorial video. Someone in the chat said Sophie killing it with the hovers. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. We definitely see a huge push through with these hovers, and they do manage to cause quite a disturbance back here. I wonder if it would have been more effective to move them up against the player in pink here, the rocks. But I feel like either way, those tanks were enough to dissuade anybody from pushing in, at least for the foreseeable future. Destroyers working hard to tear down this coral here. Tearing down construction turrets as well. Just anything that they can find. Might as well take the free damage while they can. The entire production facility for Natterzane is taken out of the map. And so, at least for the time being, things are looking pretty good. Some ducks have snuck through. They're going to be pushing into the back line here. Their little laser blast that comes out of their tusks can be quite damaging. Unfortunately, these crossbow are not going to be sufficient for dealing with these ducks, and so they're going to sneak into the back line. Did I have a plan for dealing with this? Ah, yes, the plan was the Roughneck. The gunship here. Now, luckily, my teammate Fiddler, much more on top of it, had shurikens out and about and was willing to use those to paralyze all this stuff. I've sort of been changing my mind about the Roughneck. I've kind of come to terms with it as a defensive option here. See the construction turrets working hard to rip this thing apart, and it worked pretty well. This was a tough match. This definitely pulled at least myself very far out of my comfort zone. Trying to make builds work that otherwise I never would have tried before. I'm just trying to cobble together something functional here. And as far as I was concerned, I don't think I managed to do it. But luckily I had some really stellar teammates that were absolutely on top of it. Especially down south here. You can see we're already going up to an advanced fusion reactor. And we basically got the metal to pay for it too. So this is really, really impressive. Loads of advanced solar panels. We could probably disassemble all of these. Yeah, 4,400 metal. That would probably pay for all this. We'd also tear apart the fusion reactor as well. But of course, the advanced solar panels are slightly less efficient than the fusion reactor, so I'd love to see those go first. But anyways, just the fact that we're in this position at all is really, really impressive. More and more of these ducks are out now. Man, what a menace. That is a huge imbalance between the Cortex and the Armada faction. The amphibious bot for Cortex is so much better, the duck. The amphibious bot for Armada is like a hovercraft, and it is pretty flimsy. The duck certainly feels like a much better unit. Let's see, that's 330 metal to produce one of those. I'm really curious what it would be to produce a duck, although I don't know if we'll get the chance to see. Can these produce them? They cannot. Damn. I was really hoping. Those are ducks. Those are Cortex, Armada. Yeah, but you don't have a bot lab out. No, okay, I can't show you right now. Unless Dovdar always coming in clutch here. 260. So about about an extra 100 and a little less than 100 extra metal. I'm not going to do the math. I've learned my lesson. Never do the math on stream or in a recording, whatever it is. Yeah, the platypus is a little bit cheaper, but definitely for the price you pay for a duck extra, yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. Some ducks push forward here. I accidentally cropped my own mistake out. Whoops. Yeah, definitely an accident. Cut away right at the opportune time. Definitely intended to do that, or didn't intend to do that. It was definitely a mistake here. No, some of these ducks managed to push forward here. Well, a huge push of those ducks push forward here. Luckily, the commander explosion took out a lot of them. Between the static defense over here and some bombers and the shuriken, these ducks were eventually cleaned up, but not efficiently at all. These bombers missing almost all of their shots here. Yeah, how unfortunate. Gunships luckily just decided to park over here. The aircraft are more than happy to tear them down. Very, very nice to see. The bombers having a rough time trying to kill these. My torpedo bombers are trying their best. The regular bombers are absolutely atrocious at shooting these things down. I probably should have moved the gunships over there. I was definitely scrambling. Up north, the push has been quite interesting. These ducks have torn apart these other ducks. Duck versus duck warfare. Sounds like a really fun video game. I'd play that one. Let me know down below if you got any recommendations for duck versus duck games, aside from Duck Duck Goose. Ederzane actually has clawed themselves back into the Navy. Interesting. I would not have expected that, but yeah, they've done a phenomenal job here. I guess Metal for Sure is basically just teching up, using this tremendous amount of time that they have to tech up, essentially uncontested. And yeah, I think I quite like that a lot, actually. Very nicely done. Using what time we have to our advantage here, I'm going to speed things up as we get this underway. We can see a couple of these cruisers here. These do have depth charge launchers, so they can attack these ducks. And they decide to ignore them and go straight for the source here. See, light depth charges firing away here, trying to squish these ducks underfoot, under boat, under tow. Some ducks from the blue player have managed to break into the back line. They casually ignore the economy though, and instead decide to head back for these windmills, because screw those windmills in particular. Sophie's base in a little bit of trouble, although this isn't really the base. This is more just a bunch of static defense out in the open here. The commander in no trouble at all. Of course, these hover tanks cannot attack underwater. So Sophie Prime is going to be chilling underwater here, but the hover tanks are posing quite a threat up above. These alligators cannot fire from underwater, so they do have to come out of the water in order to start shooting. But once they do, the hover tank are in quite a bit of trouble here. So they're quickly disassembled. Very nicely done. Switching over to duck production, very good. Gosh, what have I contributed? Very little. I've got very little to contribute to this fight here. Definitely not making huge impacts. I think most of the team game has been down south here. I had these torpedo bombers flying right over our commander for the longest time. Didn't even realize that. Probably could have sniped that commander and that might have been impactful. Whoa! Huge nuke comes down right in the middle of this massive army. There was tons of platypus there, so it's really unfortunate to see that come down. Oh, and yeah, someone says ouch because the anti-nuke has just been built here. Pretty unfortunate timing, but I guess it won't happen twice, and that's what really matters here. You learn your lessons, who's going to be mad at you? Some of these buccaneers moving forward here. Going to be disassembling a lot of these with their long-range heavy laser fire. Also got those depth charges for dealing with any submarines or anything like that. These are equipped with 2 laser turrets, 2 light laser turrets, and 1 heavy laser turret, although it fires out of 2 beams, so it's almost like 2 laser turrets. And they're quite damaging. Yeah, they can do a lot of work really quickly. Really good stuff. Tons of gunships coming out of the yellow player, by the way. Yellow, sort of right in the middle of the map, and it's interesting because me and yellow were both kind of in the mirrored position here, and both of us decided to go into airplay, which I thought was just pretty funny. More ducks trying to make land here, and they will make land. Friendly ducks are trying to catch up with them. Pinging the shuriken to be used here. Oh, shuriken decided to retreat. Nope, they're going to find their prey and started paralyzing all of these. The gunship, or the, yeah, I remembered that I had gunships. I'd totally forgotten about it. And then finally I remember that I had gunships. Oh yeah, and this was an interesting tech transition. Going for the T2 vehicle lab. Try and get some amphibious tanks out. Whether those are going to be effective, I cannot even remember. I hardly paid attention to them when I used them, so we'll just have to wait and see. Sophie here. Standing alone against the swarm. And metal for sure, being sure to ping the metal for sure. Boy, was that a sentence. That was a fun one, hey? A lot of these were paralyzed, but they will jump on top of this pulsar here, blowing up the tachyon accelerator, but themselves as well. And this thing is going to be happy to be resurrected in no time at all. We have tons and tons of... Oh, no, these are vehicle labs. Sorry, I thought these were bot labs. No, we're going for vehicle labs. Maybe we're going to go for some amphib tanks. That would be pretty cool. Meanwhile, the Blue Navy has halted here. We're probably going to resume production eventually. I have to imagine anyway. But we've got some harassment going out. The turtles start to move forward. This was really scary. Odd interaction here where the turtles were moving forward, and I forget why, but somehow I had vision of this area over here. I had vision of these ducks that were moving forward, and so decided to move the turtles backwards. LRPCs, long-range plasma cannons, being built and trying to pierce this shield over here. For what it's worth, they're actually doing a pretty good job. They're being assisted by a cannon up here somewhere. Yeah, there's a couple of basilisk. I almost called those basilica. But yeah, they're trying to pierce this shield, and they're doing a decent job. You can see it glances off a couple percent with every one of those shots, and they're slowly being able to pierce through that shield. The ducks march forward, but this time I came prepared. I got the turtles in place, ready to deal with all of these, sending in the torpedo bombers to get a little early damage. Try and soften up these as much as I could, really. Although I don't think these torpedo bombers really did much. Taking down 1 or 2, bringing them to low health. I mean, it's better than nothing. Might as well. Free damage is free damage. What free damage is as free damage does. The turtles now are here to play. And these tanks are pretty tanky. They can definitely take a hit, and they can deal one out too. I was thinking about detonating this geothermal, trying to get it to self-destruct here, but they blew it up before I could. So, you know, that's just how that goes. The timing on those is so difficult to do, but wow, we can see how many ducks are being brought out here. Just an endless stream of ducks, and we are going for the amphibious tanks here, the light amphibious tank, the pincer. Really, really fun stuff. Really good vehicle, really powerful vehicle. We can see Metal for sure is basically just planning on wiping away all of this southern side with sheer numbers. Numbers over tech. Really, really impactful stuff. Up north, we've got a huge wave of ducks pushing forward, but we are actually up to T3 hover tanks here, and those can do quite a lot of damage. They have that depth charge launcher, so they can attack these ducks underwater. They also have their little bomb shooter, the heavy ballistic underwater cannon, which fires a little missile thing. And that can certainly do a lot of damage as well. So there's a huge amount of damage potential up north there. Mostly these rows are just turtling up against each other. You can see the bulwarks here to stand against the enemy, although they are going down as these shields are slowly being overwhelmed. Yeah, taking a lot of damage from these basilisks and these basilica. Oh, this is the basilica. Ah, interesting. Whoa, I missed what took that out. Oh, it was a bunch of these long-range boats, probably. Yeah, a bunch of these missile couriers here. Going to be doing quite a lot of damage. We do also see a walk by over here. We see a bunch of the ducks pushing forward, marching their way across. They're not going to get too much work, but they at the very least pull that entire army away. Turtles have been spotted here. They're going to be whittled down really quickly, trying to find whatever economy they can. But there isn't much in this area. Take down a commander, which is quite nice. Yeah, these get jumped on top of by the Seeker and absolutely devastated, trying to self-destruct them. And yeah, that's not happening. Meanwhile, the march of the tanks. The tanks roll forward. You can see there's a never-ending stream of them. We're now just spamming tanks as fast as we can. Cannot catch me. I'm the metal for sure man. Yeah, both of these players down here. Wow, Sophie actually has a huge tech center. She's doing an excellent job of making sure to get a whole lot of tech out and available. Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if this feeds the entire team well into the future here. We've got tons of hovercraft platforms. This is going to be phenomenal if we produce either some light hovercraft to spam alongside this, or if we get some of those heavy halberds. Those would also be really powerful. We've seen those here and there. Big base goes down on the south to Requare, who's also pushing in, and we can see this flood of units is just too much to handle. Too hot to handle as these units continue to push forward. It's not that the Tech 2 units can't handle them, it's just that the Tech 2 units can't kill them fast enough. So, like, eventually the Tech 2 will trade evenly against this. Maybe, yeah, well, just efficiently, I suppose. But definitely, by the time that they wrap all this up, they've already made it into the back line and the damage is done. So this is some really, really lovely stuff to see. We've also got Manticores moving forward to deal with some of this anti-air. But we can see the ducks, the hover tanks, everything pushing forward here, and Davdara's base is completely demolished. Very nicely done. Absolutely tremendous play here. These turtles aren't done either. These have also kept pushing forward. Oh, these aren't turtles, sorry. Excuse me, these are the poison arrows. Choked on my words there. These are the poison arrows, which are the very heavy amphibious tank for the Cortex faction. Another incongruity between the Armada and the Cortex faction. But this is a super heavy tank. You can see how much damage this thing can actually soak up here. But yeah, these things are really, really powerful. Tons of dragons to melt down this Titan. That's actually a really nice counter here. We've got an absolutely absurd amount of dragons. So check the total count. Yeah, we're up to 27, 100 kills between all of these. And these are going to be more than enough to burst down any amount of T3. Very, very cool. Very powerful stuff. And you can see the infinite unit spam has begun. The southern half of the map has been completely obliterated. The brown player here taking over for the red player. Basically everything down south, which was eventually forfeit by those players. And you can see just how impactful this has been. At this point, I think I decided to just tech up. Yeah, I hadn't contributed much to this game. Oh yeah, this was what I resigned to do. I figured, okay, well I have the T2 lab out. The least I can do is I can make a whole bunch of these anti-air, these flak vehicles, and what I'll do is I'll just spread them out around the map. And so indeed, I just right-clicked and dragged all the way down the map here to just try and spread out a bunch of anti-air wherever I could. I figured if they had any aircraft like all these dragons up north, absolutely devastating everything. Holy crap, look at that. Oh, it's so hard to deal with these. When you get dragons in numbers like these, it is absolutely impossible to deal with them in any sort of efficient way. I'd love to see them spread out here so this area of effect doesn't ravage them quite so harshly. Ooh, yeah, that's starting to hurt. But they can just tank it all. The ones up front are scratched up pretty badly, but yeah, everything in the back is still just looking peachy. And these dragons get all the way into the back line here. You don't win unless you attack. Good job, South, for pushing instead of Sim City. And there goes the advanced fusion reactors for the northern player here. Suddenly, things are not looking so great. The southern side of the map has completely collapsed here. We see a bunch of these advanced fusion reactors in quite a lot of trouble, being surrounded by some pincers here, which are eager to blow up these advanced fusion reactors, blow them sky high. The dragons are continuing to be a menace back here. They blow up a big chain of fusion reactors, not the advanced ones, but just regular fusion reactors, taking down the T2 production facility. They take out a shield generator. They're aiming for this hardened energy storage. These explode quite voraciously when they detonate here. You can see this inner circle as if it's blown up by some other force, if it's destroyed. And yeah, they definitely can do a lot of damage to whatever is right next to them. And you can see the laser tanks moving forward here, the cataphracts pushing in against the T3. These cataphracts are really strong. They fire a beam similar to the pulsars, but not quite the same as far as damage goes. But they can do absolutely tremendous work here. Yeah, the spam was cut off because we were accidentally lagging out our own players. Sometimes for the good of the team, you have to shut off your lag machine. Such is life. These long-range plasma cannons having a field day, firing at whatever they can over here. And we watch as the tanks continue to mount an assault on the southern half of the map here. Tons and tons of build power with loads of these energy converters. We have a really, really strong economy for Master Toby. Spamming out these hover tanks, but I think maybe some Marauders or Razorbacks, maybe even Titans would probably be a better use of our metal here. We can't even spend all the metal that we have. And unfortunately, these hover tanks just can't do it. Loads of Shiva out. These are quite powerful. We all know how devastating those Shiva can be. More nukes launched, but anti-nukes are all over the place. You can see the blue team has learned their lesson. Not eager to be nuked anytime soon here. And the entire blue side of the map is covered, save for a tiny little spot on my piece of terrain, which go figure, right? At this point, based on this cue, you can probably tell what I was thinking about doing. Yeah, I'm trying to pull out a Nostradamus. At this point, I know that we basically won the game, so I figure, okay, well, let's just go for something flashy just to finish this off. And just some way to clear out the rest of this map here, because it looks like they want to fight to the bitter end. Shiva are absolutely ravaging these bases over here. Friendly and unfriendly Shiva alike are both tearing apart these bases because of that splash and friendly fire here. We also see the Navy moving forward, trying to get a little bit of work done, pushing up this channel, and this channel actually leads deep enough that you could probably fire into the economy centers here for the pink player, especially with a capital ship or something of the like. You could definitely do it. We do indeed see a Black Hydra out and about here, trying to get a little bit of damage done, but it's these T1 amphibious tanks that really won the day. Huge props to our southern side here, metal for sure. Absolutely showing us exactly how powerful those amphibious units can be. The tanks, the hovercraft, all of them are routed up north here. I'm not sure why. We now know where the last two players are, so we could just bear down on them with as much as we'd like. I'd love to see that. At this point, this was what I was resigned to. You can see I had this interesting formation here where I just started moving these out and about, and eventually they spread all the way up and down the entire the entire peninsula here. What on earth? I'm not even sure. We just watched Sophie just testing out how good those ticks are. Anyway, whoa, sorry for the frames. Trying to zoom in over here, but there's so many frames. The red team does finally resign, and the match is eventually won. I didn't even manage to move my transporters over there in time. How sad. Very, very nicely done by all of our southern players here. Sophie, Metal for sure, both of you guys doing absolutely tremendous work here. You can see, wow, Blue Sonic also scaling phenomenally. Oh, Blue Sonic is up north. Oh yeah, really, really impressive. Let me just move that out of the way. Really impressive economy up here. That was the Dragon player. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, thanks to you a ton for watching. Really appreciate that. Please consider dropping a comment down below. You thought I was going to say subscribe, didn't you? No, drop a comment down below. I'd much rather hear from you. Hear what you think about this game. Hear what you'd like to see in the future. And I hope you have a tremendous rest of your day.